Hi, welcome back. Waxing on Wednesday. And today we're going to revisit again another player that I've talked about before, but in my recent acquisition from Wendy and Bert, I found a real classic album from back in the 60s. Jimi Hendrix, Smash Hits. Greatest Hits album. And usually I like the greatest hits albums. I always say, great way to introduce yourself to a player, to get some idea what they're doing. What you miss in the greatest hits album, and I found this with bands like Chicago and a few others, when they've got an album together, Led Zeppelin to be another one that comes to mind quickly, and there is a continuity through that album. Things are there at a certain pace, a certain way to kind of take you through that. Greatest hits just kind of plunk things out, and it kind of takes away from what the album was trying to do. But as an introduction, as a way to remember some of those great hits, greatest hits are fantastic. This was, I think, the fourth album that came out. We'd already had Are You Experienced, Axis Bold as Love, and Electric Ladyland, and then this one. So drawing from those albums for the hits. Now, my first experience with Hendrix, Woodstock. The album, the movie. Obviously, he's got a Woodstock set that he puts out that covers his whole set. I mean, the album really just covered a couple of things, not a lot of what he was doing. But that was the first time I'd actually seen him play. Now, you got to remember, this back in the late 60s, early 70s. Things are changing. I think Hendrix's first album came out in 67 or somewhere around that timeline. Up until then, a lot of music, they were short songs, 2, maybe 3-minute songs at the most. You might have had a 30-second guitar solo in the middle, and that was it. When Hendrix came along and players like Clapton with Cream, Jimmy Page with Led Zeppelin, things were changing. It was more like a jazz break. They would do extended solos. There was no 30-second this, 30-second that. Improvised solos. A lot of times when you heard them live, it was not the same thing you heard on album. And again, they were stretching out. They were taking longer solos. It was not that format. And some of this was hard to fit into AM radio because they were still looking at the 2 to 3 minute songs. So a lot of them, when you got the album version, might be different than what was on the single release or what was being played on the radio because they were trying to chop that down. Another one that comes to mind on that was Blood, Sweat, and Tears. When you listen to their albums, they had extended solos, longer songs, but they chopped them down for radio. A lot of times solos were cut out. Anyways, this one, let's get back to it. Hendrix, the classic trio here. We got Hendrix, lead singer and guitar, Mitch Mitchell on drums, and Noel Redding on bass. There were 2 versions, UK version and the US version. I don't know if this is which one. Let me see. Yeah, this must be the US version because it includes Bob Dylan's All on the Watchtower, which I don't believe was on the UK version. Classic hits here: Purple Haze, Fire, The Wind Cries Mary, Can You See Me, Hey Joe, one of the few tunes on the album that Hendrix didn't write, Stone Free, Manic Depression, Foxy Lady, Crosstown Traffic, All Along the Watchtower, the Dylan tune, Red House, and Remember. Give you a shot of the back of the album so you can see what's on there. Not a lot of information, again, not telling me what the albums these songs are from unless you're familiar with it. And if you already have the albums, then you probably wouldn't be buying this one. This is more for people that want to experience, a good idea of what he's done in the first 3 albums. Now, the music is very adaptable. If you remember way back, this would be a couple of years ago now, we featured a show on Gil Evans, the legendary arranger, band leader for Miles Davis. Also was from Toronto, right? I got to work that in whenever I can, Toronto. Gil Evans had his band, and they did a whole album, a tribute to Hendrix music. And some of the tunes from here on here, I see Wind Cries Mary, Crosstown Traffic, showed up on there. Really, it fit in very well with that jazz style. And again, we talked about extended solos. Yeah, you're going to get some great stuff from Hendrix on here. Now, if you're looking, again, at the Woodstock, I think, like I say, he's got a Woodstock album that came out as well. and there's some live albums. I was surprised when I went on to Wikipedia just to take a look at a little information about him, how many albums he was a sideman on before he started releasing his solo stuff. So again, a lot of stuff to go back and take a chance on, see what he was doing back in those early days. I mean, we all know the legend. We all know the Woodstock Star Spangled Banner. If nobody knows anything else, they know that from Hendrix. But there's some great tunes here. You remember, we've got a three-piece band doing this. The only other three-piece one I think of later that came along, and he copied a lot of Hendrix's music, was Stevie Ray Vaughan, who would do a lot of Hendrix tunes. And again, just a little different way of presenting them. But it was great. Pick up this album. I'd forgotten about it. I remember seeing it. Some of my friends had it. I never had one before. I did have a cassette that we talked about earlier, but to get the old classic vinyl album, it's a piece of history here. Check out in the streaming networks. If you can get copies, that's always great to have, because like I say, vinyl album, hey man, it's a piece of history. What Hendrix did back in, I'm going to say 69, in that era, I got it in my hand. Not a lot of reading on this, but it's nice to have that. Again, you don't get that with streaming, but you do get exposure to a whole catalog of the artist. So, something for you to check out, something to crank up the speakers, crank up the stereo, don't blow up the speakers, and listen to some classic Jimi Hendrix. It'll take you through the rest of the week, and next thing you know, it'll be the weekend. Okay, that's it. Wednesday, Hendrix. We'll see you on Friday when we're looking at some 80s music. Hope you come back. Till then, take care, stay safe. Thanks for stopping by.